Here Rose is beginning with the L stretch, and this is a good place to start because it works on the posterior capsule of your shoulder, which prepares the joint for some improved stretching over the rest of this sequence. You'll notice that she's on an elevated surface. She's using a mat, but you can use a table, stool, anything you have that is sturdy and you feel comfortable on. Notice that she is bracing herself with the other hand as she places her elbow across and above the chest a little bit. It'll probably be a little bit above your collarbones, and she works in and out of the stretch. So you should feel a little bit of a stretch and go out of it, and it's a dynamic contraction, so you'll be using the shoulder muscles to pull you in and out. And then at the end of about 10 repetitions or so, just hold about 15 to 30 seconds. Next up in this shoulder flexibility sequence is shoulder flexion and thoracic extension. We put these together because they are intimately related. Your upper thoracic spine and the ability to bend, to extend, to bend backwards works with shoulder flexion, your ability to lift your hands up overhead. You notice Rose is again using this supportive structure in front. It doesn't have to be a mat. You can use a chair or anything that you're comfortable with. She's kneeling in front of it and placing her hands through there. And so that's overhead reaching. You notice now she's playing with how to spread and lift your shoulder blades together. And also you can think about weaving from side to side and exploring your range of motion here and seeing what are the different angles you can do to work on your shoulder mobility. It's also helpful to do one at a time. And again, you're not working to overdo it. You should feel comfort as you do this, and you should feel as if it improves as you do the repetitions. Again, try to use your muscles to go in and out of and get control of it. And then after some period of warm-up, usually about 10 repetitions, hold that stretch position about 15 to 30 seconds. Next up is the bent arm scaption stretch. Now the term scaption just means that you're in the plane of motion where your shoulder blade and your shoulder joint move freely as possible. So again, notice that Rose is on a supportive surface. She places her palm down and her elbow is up, and then that way you can adjust the angle to work on the stretch for your pecs and front of your shoulders. You're going to go in and out of the stretch, and again, comfort, 10 repetitions, and then hold for about 15 to 30 seconds. Next up is bent arm thoracic extension. So with the bent arm, you won't be as limited at the shoulders and at your elbows, and you'll be able to focus more on your upper back. Now, you're not just going to put your chest down to the floor. What you also want to think about is that you're bringing your chest forward and scooping it forward into that supportive surface, and that way you're going to get a better reaction at the upper thoracic spine and also protect your shoulders from being overstretched. Next up, this prone scapular series is for strengthening. You're going to be on the surface and have some room for your arm to hang freely. It's important to have your thumb roll back and your palm facing down. This is shoulder external rotation. And as you do this, you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together. This is scapular retraction. And also, you're going to feel like you're pointing down towards your feet. That's scapular depression. When you do all of these things, these works on the rotator cuff muscles, scapular muscles, the muscles around your shoulder blade, posterior delts, all of these things to help keep your shoulder stable and strong. She is starting with the position where it's back towards your feet, and then the next one is up at that Scaption angle that we did earlier, where it's about 40 degrees, 45 degrees from the straight up, and this time your thumb is pointing upwards. It's also useful to hold 2-3 seconds at the top, really feel those muscles contracting. Next up is prone shoulder circumduction. So what you're doing is working on making a half circle through those motions that you did earlier in this scapular series, but now you're more dynamic with it, really trying to get that interplay between your scapular muscles and your shoulder muscles and the joints working together. You also see some angles where you feel a little bit stiffer, a little bit weaker. This is a great exercise to work on that. So Rose is going in one direction, a few repetitions, and then reverse it and do the other side. Next up, for strengthening, the scapular strengthening. You'll notice she's doing it on extended elbows. So this way you are working directly with your scapular muscles to engage all of those range of motions, and you're making circles. It can be helpful to be on dumbbells instead of push-up bars if you have some wrist issues. It's also good to be a little bit elevated. For our motor control play, we're working on those scapular motions, but this time inverted. Your feet should be elevated a bit. Now, it doesn't have to be too high. You want to feel comfortable. You can also do it with your feet not elevated. Just be sort of in the downward dog position, the A-frame, to give yourself some different angles for your muscles to play with. Here we see the same thing, but now in a sitting posture. So here it's important to keep your chest up, roll your shoulders back and forth, side to side. Again, we want to play with this and see what we can do with our muscles and really establish a good sense of control over our movements.